Hello and welcome to Talking Development. Today I am coming to you from Kathmandu, Nepal, where I was inspired, actually blown away, by the work a film production company called Incessant Studios is doing here in Nepal. Incessant Studios produces computer animations and visual effects and offers post-production services. The studio has emerged as a pioneer of animation outsourcing in Nepal and has worked with Walt Disney Studios, Sony Pictures, Netflix, and other international clients, including the World Bank. However, Incessant Studios goes beyond creating animations. The studio works to uplift Nepali youth and create jobs in the animation and visual effects industry. Today, I am so excited to host the co-founders of Incessant Studios. Kiran and Deepa, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Talking Development. I am so excited to have you here. I have questions for both of you, and I think, Kiran, I'm going to start with you. Before you co-founded this company, you were working in charge, in fact, of digital production and visual arts at Disney in California. And you were involved in some really flagship projects like Lion King, which, by the way, I just saw the theater production of and loved it, the musical production of it and loved it, and Beauty and the Beast, of course. And I'm curious, at what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to start a company and do something similar, but I'm going to do it in Nepal?
I'd been at Disney for over 17 years, and I was at a crossroad. I was trying to think what I should do next. And in 2007, I came to Nepal, Kathmandu, on a family visit. And while I was here, I met a lot of young artists. But during the last phase of my trip, I met this young 19-year-old boy. And he showed an amazing artwork. And they were all self-taught. And so after the meeting, I got up and I tried to shake hands with him and try to encourage him and say, keep the work, keep on learning, this is great, you're on the right path. And instead of reaching out and giving me his hand, he looked straight into my eyes and said, but this is my passion, and if someone like you do not create a platform for people like us, next time you come back to Nepal, most probably you'll run into me in a bank working. Because this is my passion, but my parents want me to work in the business side. And that really hit me hard. And then at that time, I felt like this is probably the right time. If it's not that, then when? So that's how it all began.
That's very interesting, and I'm going to pick up on something you said, which I've also heard since I've been here for a few days, which is people here are very passionate, but there are social norms that sometimes dictate where you end up or determine where you end up. And when I visited your studio a few days ago, I saw a lot of young people, and I'm wondering, how are you finding the people? How are you finding people to come join your company who also have the skills, the passion and the potential? And how are you sort of supporting them to grow in this field that they're passionate in against the backdrop that society is also shifting, but maybe not shifting fast enough to make it easy always?
So as you know, the industry, the animation visual effects industry in Nepal is only about 15, 16 years. So obviously we have to tap into the young artists. And initially it's hard because first of all, they don't know what this industry is about. They've seen movies, but they really don't understand all the aspects of the job. So when we recruit these young artists, first of all, we need to invest on them in training. And at our studio, we have this coaching and mentoring program. And we take every artist from the day one that they start in terms of training them, not just in the creative and technical aspects, but also other areas, the soft skills, communication. So we have lots of classes like drawing classes, acting classes, sculpting. And actually these classes are not just open to the artists, but they're open to everybody. A finance person, an HR person can also go and take these classes. So we constantly are teaching them. Because I think part of the thing is, what we also emphasize is that in the studio is that it's merit-based. And the more they learn and grow, their promotions are much faster. And so that's also an incentive and for them to like really reach out and learn more stuff. And that's how we've been growing.
That is so inspiring and so important. And it reminds me also of the conversations we've had here, which is that it's so important to support the private sector, because the private sector creates the jobs of the future and brings the investments needed to skill and train, but also new ideas and innovation that otherwise would not be there. So I'm going to come back to you because I have a couple more questions for you. But Deepa, I was also intrigued when I visited you and I heard that you've actually been very much the sort of champion behind this sort of training academy. And is it linked to what Kiran just said? Tell us a little bit about why did you feel, your company is evolving, growing, changing, why did you feel that it was time to do a training academy?
Sure. The formal and informal education system in Nepal does not really train young people to be job ready, especially for our industry. And for the last 15 years, we have been training in-house, but it's not a scalable solution. And right now we're really growing, and it'll be a shame not to take advantage of the opportunities that's available. And so since we have been training, we know how to train, and we are growing. So it's a no-brainer for us to say, okay, let's open an academy. And it's going really great.
And when I visited your studio, I actually saw quite a few women in this industry, which is also great, art and tech and innovation. What are you doing to help women? And is Nepal on the move when it comes to closing the gender gap and women empowerment, or is there still a long way to go?
I don't think Nepal has even started to scratch the surface of understanding it, and then from an institutional perspective, embracing it. At the studio, we have an advocate. She makes sure that women are heard and represented, and they understand that they are part of Incessant Rain and they're important. And so that really helps women kind of understand that, hey, I got somewhere to go if I need some help. Also, we address job insecurity due to pregnancy and childbirth. So in addition to 3 months of maternity leave, we have 6 more months these women can take, and they come back to the same position. We have coached our supervisors, and we continue to do so, saying, listen, this is what we have to do. This is part of the ethos of our company, that we support 50% of our population. And so it's, they're digesting it. It's not 100% there yet, but we have a process. And of course, childcare. We don't have a childcare center right now, but we will definitely have one soon.
Makes a huge difference. We have it at the World Bank, and I have to say it makes a huge difference. Wonderful. I was impressed that you can do all this amazing work out of your studio here. And the world is so globalizing and is so competitive, and now we have AI, and Nepal creates clearly a great platform for you because you've got so much talent here, but also some of the challenges you have. How do you see yourself remaining competitive in this fast evolving market and from the platform you've created here?
I think the number one thing is to be able to adapt. But I also think that a place like Nepal, in most countries in Southeast Asia, there are lots of creative people. And it's the fact that the resources that we have here, like more than 40% of the people out here are younger generation, and so they can really adapt. So I think one of our focus has been really about being very open, letting them know that change is happening. If somebody feels comfortable working in certain type of work, we constantly move them around into different departments so they can adapt and learn different skill sets. And in terms of AI, one of the things that we are, in the last 6-7 months, what we've focused is, we've created an R&D group in the studio, where their sole purpose is to look at what's happening in the industry and then how that applies to us so that we can be ahead of the curve. We're also exploring tools that are really used in different areas. For example, we're in our current project, some of the tools that we're using are game engine, Unreal engines that's not used commonly in the feature film business. But we realized that that's where the industry is going. So we started investing time and our own money in terms of using these so that people can really familiarize themselves and be ready for the next step.
Deepa.
Sure. So definitely the winds are changing and seems like it's fiercer. However, I don't really look at it as headwinds. I feel that it's an opportunity. The West is seeking its future labor force, and we have the future labor force. We got to be smart, we got to be savvy, understand the needs and requirements of the industry, and be agile, right? Everything that's happening over here, including AI, it's kind of scary right now, but to me, it's also full of opportunities. You need leadership, you need to be able to influence, you need to give people hope. And I think if you give those elements to people in Nepal, I can't say for other countries, but in Nepal, if they really believe in those elements, I think we're good.
I love two things that both of you emphasized. One is you've got to keep very much abreast of where your industry is and adapt, adjust, and keep agile, but you also have to build from the strengths within your company. And actually it makes me think also about our own agility as an institution to do development more effectively. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to come back with one final question. I was intrigued again when I visited, and I want to ask you maybe just to share, who is Yeti Man?
So Yeti Man, I love that you asked that question. So, one of my passion is always tell stories, because when I left Nepal, I was 19, and I grew up listening to all these stories. And we are at a time where the West is looking for original content, authentic content from this part of the world. So Yeti Man is a story that we developed, which is really about, that taps into this part of the world, because everybody knows that Yetis live in the Himalayas, even though nobody's seen it. So we've really created this character, a superhero character that lives in the Himalayas, that really portrays the message of inclusion. And I think our IP that we're developing for Yeti Man can be very, very powerful for the global market, because that's one of my passion, one of my dreams, is to take stories from this part of the world and tell it in a very authentic way in terms of the story, the visuals, and the sound and music, and share it with the global audience.
What draws you in with animation, but also the rich cultural and bringing something from home to this viewer pleasure and viewer entertainment that you will have. So I can't wait to catch that. I'll be on the lookout for Yeti Man. Well, I want to thank both of you. It's been great to have you on my Talking Development today, and I can't wait to connect with you again, and wish you good luck. I'll be really following your business from now on. It's been so exciting to learn so much more, and I really do feel there's a lot of interlinkages between what you're doing and what we're trying to do in development, and the role you play as private sector innovators, investors, but also what you do for young people, their passions, their dreams, and for gender equality, which is so important for the agenda here. So thank you so much for sharing.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Anna.
And thank you for joining me today. I hope you were as inspired by this conversation as I was. Incessant Rain Studios is a prime example of how investing in human capital and technology can have transformative impact. By drawing on Nepal's youth, diversity, and talent, the studio has been able to tap into a skilled workforce and leverage the country's unique cultural heritage to create compelling content, positioning Nepal as a major outsourcing company here in South Asia. Incessant Rain Studios has also shown how inclusion, diversity, youth, and determination can turn a company in a small country like Nepal into a force for good. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Talking Development.